the bigger political picture with Robin Miller, who's the Conservative MP for Aberconwy. Good morning.
Good morning, Oliver.
Hi there. 26% swing against the Conservatives in the Blackpool South by-election. Worst local election results in 40 years. It's looking pretty grim, isn't it? Pretty bleak.
It was not a good day. It was disappointing. There's no way of putting that other than to say, yes, it was disappointing.
Why?
I think there's lots of reasons, but actually what we have to do is get under the lid of this. And you could paint the whole thing with one big broad brush, which says it's rubbish, it's terrible, we're going to lose the general election, etc. But I think that's not a sensible approach. That's simplistic. And if you start to look under the lid of each one of those election results, I've only had time to look at a few, but they do tell their own story. And there's some important lessons there for all the parties. So, for example, you mentioned Blackpool South, and it fits a pattern of losing by-elections recently by Conservatives. And we have to say, when you look at those results, it's dominated by the poor turnout. So Labour won it. They won it convincingly, but they won it with 2,000 votes fewer than their 2019 results when they came second. So there's questions really for all the parties, not least for us, 13,000 votes less than 2019 in that by-election. But only 1,000 more for reform. So people clearly are simply staying at home. And that's a question not only for us, but for all parties, I suspect.
Good. You're in the same sort of mood as I am this morning. I want to get under the bonnet here. And so let's do that. Let's look at a few of the things that, a few of the things that could be changed maybe, or in the time that remains. Dame Andrea Jenkyns in the Telegraph today. Not sure if you've had an opportunity to read what she's written. One of the protagonists in chief, isn't she? She's had her letter of no confidence in for about 6 months now, but even she...
Oh, yes, I know Andrea. I just haven't read her article this morning.
But even she seems to have cooled off on the idea of any challenge to Rishi Sunak before a general election.
Well, I have to say, Oliver, on that point, and I've been asked this any number of times over the last few days, the only place I'm hearing about challenges to Rishi Sunak are in the newspapers and on the media. I simply am not hearing any colleagues talking about it in London at all.
So that's not going to happen, is it?
I cannot see it happening. I have no knowledge of it. I cannot see it happening. Personally, I think it would be a disastrous thing to do. It would be silly. It would be foolish.
So if that's not going to happen, it comes down to what Rishi Sunak can do to try to build up some sort of momentum. Let's stay with Andrea Jenkyns. She says, bring back some of the big beasts into a war cabinet. Let's have Robert Jenrick back. Let's have Priti Patel back. Let's have Suella Braverman back. Get Boris Johnson fighting a seat at the election. Make him party chairman. Would you sign up to any of that?
Well, I know Andrea through the House, obviously, and doing bits and pieces of work with her. I have a lot of time for what she has to say, and her view is an important one. On this, though, I would disagree. And the reason is because, actually, I think what's happened over the last decade or so, since 2010, if I had to point to a date, it would be 2010, when the leader debates were introduced into general elections. And I think that was a mistake because it fed a belief and a fascination with personality politics. And I think there's a hint of that in these suggestions that a big beast needs to come back, etc. Yes, we all like a sort of charismatic figure, a lead from the front type, but that's not all there is to politics, and certainly not all there is to running a country. So I actually think that when we talk about change, we have to take the bigger picture too and say, if you excuse the metaphor this early in the morning, it takes time to turn the tanker. And we've been working through a plan as Conservatives. We've seen inflation come down. We've seen the first asylum seekers head back to Rwanda. We've seen the legislation passed that's going to help us do that. These things take time. People will have received the average salary across the UK is about 34,000. So someone on a salary like that will have received £900 extra this year in their paychecks. Now, that's only just started this April, so it's going to take a few months for the effects of that to start.
Is it though? Felt. Because the message hasn't changed, and while there may have been progress on some of these measures, the polls haven't shifted. The Conservatives pick up no momentum whatsoever, and people would be excused for thinking you're starting to sound like Canute here.
Well, that's a perfectly reasonable thing to say, but I'd also suggest that actually that's part of the role of leadership. And what we've faced.
Are you getting that leadership? Are you getting that leadership from Rishi Sunak?
Absolutely, we are. Absolutely, we are. There's the old Kipling poem, isn't it? When all around you are losing their heads, but you don't. That's what it is to be a man. And leadership says, look, this isn't there. It needs to be there. I'm going to put it there. Follow me. And that's what Rishi's done.
I'm not sure the public see that, though. It's one thing to chair a meeting and to be reassuring to MPs and say, stick with me, it'll be okay. I'm not sure the public see any great leadership.
I would disagree myself. I think that...
Are you not hearing that on the doorstep? Are you not hearing that on the doorstep? Are you not hearing frustration with Rishi Sunak's performance as Prime Minister on the doorstep?
Honestly, when I knock on doors in Aberconwy, that is not what I hear. I hear other things. A conversation I had just yesterday with a farmer, the first thing I thought he was going to talk to me about the problems with farming that we've had in Wales and the concerns about subsidies and schemes to require farmers to plant 20% of their land with trees, etc. No, his first comment to me was how the world is becoming a more dangerous place. Another conversation I had yesterday was, what are we doing about Gaza? There are lots of things on people's minds, and we as a nation are leading on these responses. In Ukraine, we led, and we have a place there. We just pledged £3 billion a year for as long as it takes. There are many more factors. I think it's a real mistake when pollsters, if you'll forgive me, the media and pundits try and boil it down to a very simple this person, that person, or this vote or that vote. The vote we had yesterday, absolutely, it's something I'm listening to closely. I'm digging through the local results for myself even to see, okay, how did different wards vote in this election? That's important information. I'm listening to it.
Something else.
There are many other factors involved in this.
Well, let's talk about
we mustn't project and put too much weight on just one set of results. There is only one poll that counts, as the saying goes, and that will be the general election itself.
Let's deal with two things quickly, because a couple of other things we can sort of deal with under the bonnet, something else that might need a bit of tinkering. Reform UK, their performance must be a concern, almost beat you to second place in Blackpool South. Richard Tice doesn't appear to be in any mood for a deal, but if they're going to be taking votes from you across the country in the general election when it comes, that could be damaging. Would you go looking for a deal with Reform?
That's no, is a simple answer. No. Look, I haven't spent 4.5 years trying to get re-elected. What I've done is 4.5 years trying to do my job. And a big part of this for me is very simple. That's my record. North Wales, it's got a free port, it's got an investment zone, it's got £1 billion on a North Wales electrification of the North Wales main line. These things weren't there 4 years ago. And I know that those are game changers. When I was growing up in North Wales, it was very simple. You have to leave to get a job, build a career, make something of yourself. Right now, the prospects are better for any young person in North Wales. And the people in North Wales know that. They know that they returned 7 out of 9 MPs as Conservatives in 2019. Those are real changes. And the evidence, if anything, if you look at Ben Houchen's result in Teesside, the evidence is that where individuals are delivering for people are saying, yes, we want more.
And that's the issue, isn't it? I mean, if you look at what happened there, it didn't even wear a blue rosette at the count. There was no mention of Rishi Sunak through the campaign at all. Is that what you're going to do then in defending your 2,000 majority? You'll go out and campaign on your record, will you, rather than that of the party or that of the leader?
I will certainly campaign on my record, but I've been very proud to welcome Rishi twice into this constituency. I welcome Boris twice into the constituency as well. These people are the Prime Minister, the First Minister, the most important person in the United Kingdom. And when I can bring them back to this constituency, I can show this constituency that they are being heard in Westminster, that the most important person in Britain politically knows about them. That's my job to do. And that's why they come. So Ben Houchen, he was the Conservative candidate. There was no secret about that. He didn't need to carry around a badge saying, I'm a Conservative, look over here. On the ballot paper, it said Conservative.
Thank you very much.
Conservative logo next to his name.
Thank you. We've got to move on, but thank you very much. Thank you. That's Robin Miller, the Conservative MP for